So, dobrý den. I hope it's the right pronunciation. I'm very happy to be here with you, and I'll try to make a presentation about the building information modeling and what are the impact of this new digital capacity in our business. I'm the head of a strategy of Quartus. Quartus is a real estate developer, so we practically develop buildings in France, residential and commercial buildings. Previously, I worked in also another developer company in Germany, and before that, I spent 10 years working in a construction company, a French construction company, Vinci, that you may know, during 10 years in Eastern Europe, Prague, Warsaw, and also Budapest and some other city where I have a chance to build hotels and non-residential building. As of today, you see, I put there a couple of institutions which I'm working with. It's not to be to show you a lot of things, but just to give you the goal of the work I'm doing. I try to put a bridge between the technical world, means what the engineers are doing, what the architects are designing, and the other side of the world, which is the money makers, investors, banks, developers. And usually they don't talk to each other. So my goal is to try to bridge these two parts of the real estate world, technicians and money makers, in order to have a capacity to improve the kind of choice that you can do in the type of building you want and the performance of a building you expect. So that's why I'm a member of the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, which is an international organization based in UK, and my job inside that is to work on valuation process. What is the value of such a building like this? It's a day-to-day job that we put into the bookkeeping of banks. So what kind of information do I take into account to say that this building is 100 million value or 1 billion or 10 euros? What kind of rules do I use? And you will see in my presentation that it has some impact about how you translate your technical informations into the world of valuation. I'm also a member of a Sustainable Building Alliance, which is an association of certification body. You may know the German DGNB, or the UK BREEAM, French SQE, and also with Finnish and other systems. So the idea is to work together on the certification system of buildings, sustainable certification or quality certification. I'm the Vice President of the European Federation of Engineering Associations, where you are all welcome to have a look on www.riva.eu, because you will find a lot of information about what's going on in the European-wide area, and we are also Russian members, so you are very warmly welcome to join us. And the United Nations Environmental Programme Finance Initiative, so I'm sitting there only with bankers. Too fast. I'm sitting in this initiative with bankers, investors, and insurance company. So you see, technical side and the financial side. And the last one is a French association working on energy efficiency retrofit. So the idea there is to help and work on the capacity to have more efficient building, more comfortable, and to translate it into the valuation process in order to make the right decision when you decide to build or retrofit a building. So today the question is about the building information model and what we can do with the information. Today, all of you use information to do your job. You ask for information about the technical capacity of a chiller, the quality of the handling unit in cubic meters or temperature or whatever. But if I give this information as a raw information, does it make sense to take a decision? Or do I have to translate it into a system in order to have a proper information to make the right decision for performance of a building with fragmented information? So this is where the building information model can help us. So usually when we spoke about building information model, we are talking about the capacity to have beautiful pictures. Because this is very funny. You have colors, pictures, and it's very nice. So everybody likes to work on 3D, because then I don't have it as a movie, but you can turn around the building, you can have colors changing, and as human beings, we love colors in pictures, and we love movies. So that's why we go to the cinema, to theater. So the first thing that you get when you speak about building information modeling is to try to achieve this kind of thing, or this kind with you can play around. But you know, the visualization, of course, is a huge improvement about the building architecture design as it is in architecture or in techniques. But the most important of the building information model is that you can have data about components. And this is really the most important part. I put it in French because no matter if it is in French, in English, or in Russian, the most important is to look after the data of components. And, of course, not only to have the data in your database, because it doesn't make sense to have the data by your own. It's the interoperability, or you can share this data and use it into your systems. So this is what we can do with BIM. I took there an extract from the Finnish Research Center, which I'm working with. It's an old one, but it's really telling you all you can do with that. So, you know, what is very important in the building information model is the capacity of sharing. If you have data and you can't give it to someone else, and if they can't use it easily, it doesn't work. If I have technical data about the heating and ventilation system, and I can't use this data easily into my simulation software, and if I have to rewrite everything in my simulation software, it doesn't make sense. So really I want to insist on that, because usually you will find software editors that will sell you software solutions for your use, but some of them are forgetting the needs of connections. And if your software is a closed one and don't speak with other softwares, and if you can't send out the data and send in the data from others, you can throw your software to the bin, because it will be helpful for you at this moment, but it doesn't make value for your company, or doesn't make value for your work. What is very important for your building information model is the capacity of export and import of the data. And of course, it's also important to have connections with other geographical information systems, especially with a connection with infrastructures. This is a European project that is led by French companies. It's about how to connect the model of a building to the model of infrastructures. Why? Because we need then to have a capacity to work on different layers and to connect the information about the energy use of a building to the energy flow that you have in the heating, district heating, for example, or electrical grid. So this is also about the connection of a building inside the big picture of the neighborhood. So here we are. What is very important and what happened 5-6 years ago is that for the first time we were in capacity to work with the standards of communication, which is IFC. This is what we did previously. So we had the exchange of drawings, and then we share the drawings. You need to put a stamp on it to say, I have controlled it, I have checked, then you give it to another one. You say, no, you have to change something, and around, and you get back, and you use a lot of time to just make this complicated exchange of drawings between designers. The idea of a BIM is collaboration, but two main important things for collaboration. First, what is the quality of information that I send to someone? Can I trust the information from my architect? Can the architect trust the information from the engineer? Who is responsible of information? We were used to this system and to give a level of trust to the documents that we are exchanging. Know that we are not exchanging the documents, that we are collaborating on one model. We need to have new ways of work for this collaboration, because it doesn't still make sense that an engineer is responsible of the design, that an industrial is responsible about the information. So the idea there, you see, the capacity of exchange data, trust, and also the capacity of interoperability means that you need to be in capacity to send the information to someone that is making simulations, thermal simulation, energy simulations, consumption, with the information of the envelope, without having to rewrite this information into his own software. Because as of today, I have to be very transparent with you. The building information model system doesn't work. We all talk about it, but it doesn't work because the interoperability of data doesn't work properly. When I need to import the information about a product to make an energy simulation calculation, usually it's still missing something and I can't do it. So we are close to achieve the capacity of making this BIM, building information modeling, works, but it's still not perfect. It has to be improved, and I think in your day-to-day job, think about the capacity to do it, but don't forget that today we still have to face a lot of problems. You know, it's like the same that we started the internet. I'm old enough to remember that. I know some of you always lived with internet. When we started the internet, we had a lot of problems in the 90s because of the addressing. And before we invented the TCP/IP protocol, we didn't work because we couldn't address properly a web page. So how do you find a web page in the universe without a standardized addressing system? So this is exactly the point where we are today in the building information model. Standardization people are working about a standardized addressing system, and to give you a vision, we will have in March this year a worldwide summit in Paris to discuss about standardization process of addressing a component. What does it mean? It means that if I want to check in my database information about the carpet here in the floor, it must be everywhere in the world that the carpet has the same address. And today I can tell you it doesn't work. So just to give you some information, I will go through that to tell you that it's really an international process that I started, as I said, 10 years ago, and work a lot with colleagues from all over the world. So you can see here But one important step that was made is the Building Smart Alliance. And this World Summit in March will be with the Building Smart Alliance to work on standardization. So in Europe, we started with that in 2014, 2015, to work also on standardization, and also in UK. And what was very important for us in 2014 was a directive that authorized every investor to ask to have a project under a digital twin. It means that you can ask for a project with a digital twin, with the building information model, because before it was considered too difficult for companies to deliver, so you couldn't ask for that without paying more than usual. So it was a big step ahead. Then here we are in terms of advance. So you see that a lot of countries in Europe have started to work, and you can see that Finland and Norway are really advanced in that. I think that in Finland it's mandatory for public buildings, in UK also, and Germany and Spain are following. So the idea for us, you can compare what happened in UK and France. So UK started a couple of years before France, works on standards, make mandatory the building information modeling in 2016 with level 2 of the building information model. And in France we worked with another approach, trying to make the building information model acceptable for every stakeholder, every companies, and especially the small companies be in capacity to use it. So this is for the standards and where we work on the standards. So you see a lot of work is done now to standardization, as I said, because without that, the building information model doesn't give the extra advantage in efficiency that you expect from a collaborative system. Here are the different standards. So you see that we have different level, the national level standards, then the European one with this SEN, and then if you are interested at the worldwide level, you have a standardization process which is named ISO 59/SC13. You know, the international standardization process, they love this kind of name, which is very poetic. So you always have a very strange name for standardizations. Sorry. So what you can find out if you want to go further in Building Smart, which is useful, is which kind of data models with the industry foundation classes. So what kind of address you give to each component. The process manuals, or you work with the data, and the dictionary, which is something I will show you after that, how it works. Building information model. Don't be afraid, very easy to use, but, you need to be careful when you work on your design process to not start the design process with such huge information into your model. Otherwise, you will take a lot of data into your model and it doesn't make sense. So you have to adapt the level of detail, LOD, according which phase you are in your system. If you are just at the beginning of a process, please, a chair is just a chair. Level of details 100, it's a chair. Don't try to give too much data. The same thing for heating and ventilation. If you need to design at the beginning, a chiller is a chiller, nothing more. A handling unit is a handling unit. And then you start to put some more data about the quantity of air of your handling units and so on. And you go step by step during your process, adding a level of details. This is quite important because usually, because of the sense of capacity to do a lot of things with building information models, people have tendency to put a lot of information from the beginning. And it doesn't make sense because then it can change your design, and off the top, it doesn't mean that you will have this chair at the end of a design if you are at the beginning. So be careful with that, because if you start to import into your model immediately a very detailed information, then you lose the capacity to make simulations easily and to change the type of components during the process. So you see here, sorry if it's not very clear, but it's just for the concept. You have the level of details, then you have the depth of details, so you go in, and the quantity of information. Because, of course, the more you have information, the more quantity you have, the more heavy will be the modeling system. So also it's the work usually for your BIM manager to look at the quantity of data that you have in your modeling system. If your digital twin of a building is too heavy to manage, nobody will use it, because it will take 15 minutes to upload the twin, and everybody will be fed up and will come back to the plans on paper. So it has to be easy for the viewing. Really, for building information modeling, don't take it as a technician vision, take it from the user. If you want to see something on the building, it must be easy to upload, fast to see it. If you have your smartphone, you will not like to have an application that takes 10 minutes to open. So it's the same for the building information model. If it takes such a long time, throw it away, change the system, think about less data. Don't forget also that we are not alone as designers in the world. A lot of people have started before, and especially the industry. And the industry, of course, they are not working on the same format of data than the software for design that you use. You are used to Archicad or Revit. And of course, the industry also works with another one, which is GS1, or BSI, or E-Class. So again, one more problem, because the data are not working together. So one of the huge challenges now is to work with the industry in order to translate that into the software that we are used to work in design. Data information, you have a lot of data information, so how to manage it, how to exchange. This diagram is important if you want to use properly the building information model. It talks about the capacity to look at the intensity of data exchange. It's usually something that it's not used. Usually you forget about the data quantity exchanged between people, and that's what I said. Sometimes it makes complicated to work on the model altogether. So it's really important to look at what amount of data you will exchange between designers, between designers and contractors, in order to have the right capacity of data flow in the infrastructures, and also, as I said, the capacity of viewing the model on site. For example, what we are working on today is the capacity for workers on site to see on the Google Glasses the plan for how to assemble technical stuff. It was done since 2-3 years in plants, where you have people working on assembly technical parts of systems, and they had the assembly documentation on their Google Glasses. So you will have it on site soon. No, not this one. Next time I'm coming with Google Glasses, you will see that. I tried it a month ago, and really impressive, where you have to plug, for example, valve systems on on a machine, then it shows you what you have to do, and on the top of that, it also takes a picture about how you have make the assembly, so you can send it out to the factory, and they will check if you do it if you have done it properly or not. So quite important to help every people to work, designers. Usually when we think about building information modeling, we think about designers, but it works also for workers on site to have the right information at the right time. So we usually in buildings doing such a diagram of information exchange to really have a vision for everyone, what are the data flow, to whom it comes, and what is the intensity of data flow. What happens? I told you about BIM level. So BIM level 1 is just, as I said, to have a capacity to have a drawing in 3 dimensions with beautiful colors. Level 2 means that you start to have clear, reliable information about components, that you can trust about the information of components. And then level 3, where we are today, you can use the industrial classes. You have the standardization about exchange of data between different softwares, and it's fully integrated. So this is where we stand today in development of level 3. And the added value of building information model is there. Because then we can work faster, you can work with more precision and less non-quality. I show you that here we need also to work on the frequency of data, so it depends on the timing of a site construction, so it's just one information. Here we were at the design, so you see that the most important was exchange of data during the design for calculations, simulations, and models, and of course less information from product info. But this kind of diagram is made for every phase of a building design or building construction to know to whom I have to open my system to work with. This is a vision about where it doesn't work today. The point we have is that, as I said today, it's not fully technologically ready in terms of standards, but by 2020, so it's very soon, we will have this standardization. The cost of technology will be marginal. I spoke about the Google Glasses on site. Today it's thousands of euros to have it on the hat of a worker. I'm sure that in the next 2-3 years, it will be about hundreds of euros, and then it will make sense to put it on each hat of a worker. We have a capacity to have a customization of solutions, so that for each designer, if software, we can customize. And as I mentioned before, the most important is the technological compatibility and effectiveness. So, to resume what I've said, interoperability is the most important stuff for today. So it means that we are really in capacity to identify the process, the taxonomy, how we address the components, and the technical standards. Risk. One of the main risks is that your data, as you see there, you can't use it anymore in 10 years. I'm sure that some of you still have this kind of stuff to look at films that was very used 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So if you try to watch a movie with that today, you can't anymore. It will be difficult. So what will happen with the data of a building in the next 10, 20 years? Because data has value if you can operate it. So it's very important also to have a process to make the data still available on time. The other one is security, of course, because everyone can hack your design systems, everyone can hack the building. We now have a couple of interesting stories about a hotel that was hacked a couple of months ago, and the hackers went into the BMS, the building management system, and they put the heating at the maximum. So it was 35 degrees into the rooms. They called the hotel owner and they said, if you don't pay, I don't remember the amount, if you don't pay $50,000, you will still have 35 degrees in your room. Kind of hacking that you can imagine for the next years if your building management system is connected to the outside and not protected. Very easy to be done. It happens the same with the door lockers. You know, you put your card on your door, but some door lockers are very easy to hack. So we also have one story of cyber attack where the hotel, all the doors were locked. Think about it when you design your systems. I will go through that. What is very important that we have now a couple of standards that you will have to translate. So be used to work with different languages. We spoke about the industry foundation classes, which is IFC. Now you will hear more and more about OmniClass, which is how you translate the information about a component to put it into a space. So my carpet, which has an address, I need to address it inside a space. So I need to connect the components and the space. So this is the role of the OmniClass systems. And it brings you to very funny tables like that, where you see the IFC. Then the IFC will need to be translated into uniformat, then in OmniClass, and you see here all the components. And here it's written in English. We translate it in French, because we need to be in comparison with what you have to use to do in French. So I do expect that someone will do the same job soon in Russia to translate this codification with Russian wording to make the connection between components. If you find someone who have done it in Russia, it really will be very, very useful for all of you. If not, please do it. It's really a big step ahead for everyone to speak the language you need. We spoke also for facility management. Of course, I spoke a lot about design, but facility management is really important to take care about it. So it also makes sense to give the digital twin of your building to the facility manager to maintain properly the building. It's also good because then when you have your digital twin, you can make a simulation with external data, like weather, like new services, and so on. So you see there that you move your building from a picture of a building, because when you give the drawings of a building, you have a picture, a static vision. You move from a dynamic vision of your building with time, valuation on time, retrofit, how does it fit to the needs, and how does the building react during the life cycle of a building. It's also very useful to aggregate a lot of data for energy in life cycle, so you can work with the energy information, not only about the energy used by the building, but also all the energy that is plugged inside the building, and also all the energy that you have used to build the building. And on top of that, you can aggregate the transportation. Each of you came to this hotel. Each of you has used a type of transport, car, subway, whatever. It has a consumption, and because you came here, it should be in a way aggregated to the building. Thanks to that, in Europe, we have the European normalization. So now you have all the European norms that are ready to work on assessment connected to the international norms. So if you are interested in this, is all the European norms are integrated together. And what is most important for us is that now we move from norms about components to norms about performance. So it's really important that the shift is there, that we are not talking anymore about the certification of a product, but we will be more and more talking about the certification of a system. So if your chiller is certified, okay, but what is the performance of a chiller plus handling unit, plus the ducts, plus the terminal unit? Can you guarantee me that? What is the quality? What is the quality of air? What is the thermal comfort you can guarantee? So this will be the next certification process that is developed by the European normalization. And it's here, you see, it's European and international process with ISO, and again you find out these very poetic names of ISO groups. So it can also give you, as I mentioned, the capacity, because you can aggregate a lot of data thanks to building information modeling. Then you can have the capacity to aggregate this data and translate it. For example, in building passports, where for 50 years, you can say what is the consumption, what is the greenhouse gas emission, and you can have a vision about every year. Then you can manage the uncertainty of a design to check how it is working really as the building is running and what is the performance. You can work with different information about consumption. You can work with the calculation of greenhouse gas emission. You can measure your annual energy consumption and compare it to the design, and so on and so on. This is something that is now developed, for example, in Finland through the Finnish Green Building Council, and they work with this kind of vision on a building passport to give information about the global quality of a building, energy performance, and quality of indoor air quality. But when you have done that, why as an investor I will choose that? I don't care. I'm an investor. I put money on a building. I want to build it fast and make a lot of money on the extra value. So I will not choose such good components that cost me more as of today. Because if I think only in terms of cost, as an investor, I will never choose the highest cost in technical facilities. I will choose the lowest. But because I try to work in both worlds, there is a way to convince an investor. If you don't sell extra cost, but you sell an added value to your investor. And then you need to translate the quality and the performance of your building into the added value. So this is the way you can do that, because we are used to work with a market value. Market value is something that is used by valuers, and you have a capacity to work income, expense, risk, and so on. You can then have an impact on the value if you look at what kind of risk and operating expenses you're working on. This is the kind of easy mathematical formula we use for valuation. It only impresses bankers. It's a very easy formula, in fact. But when you work in finance, you have to have mathematical formula to make you serious. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So this is just give you a discounted cash flow methodology. I will not go through that, but just to show you that all the red dots I put there is where your heating and ventilation system can have an impact on the value. You can work also on the risk approach. It can have an impact on the risk approach. So you have to translate the performance of your system into a risk approach. You know it very well in hospitals, for example, when we choose a technical or in data centers. when you choose a technical system in this hospital or data centers, you look very close to the risk of failure. It's the same in a building office or in a hotel. Less sensitive, but also it has an impact. If the heating will not work in this room, I can't stay here, and I can't stay here, and I can't have this conference, and they will lose money. It's also an impact on the flexibility cost. It can change the way you use the room differently. And to do that, to close the loop with a building information model, we need to collect a lot of data and to aggregate it and translate it. So this is how it could work. Data collection, uncertainty management, and translation through the market filters. So each technical component you put inside the building can have an impact on the market value of a building, can have an impact on the investor decision. Because more and more building is a service. More and more we expect to have services from building. And one of the most important services of a building is the indoor quality, indoor air quality. So this is the data flow and aggregation, same thing that I showed you before, but from the other point of view, starting from the valuation. And just to inform you, if you want to have more detail about that, we worked on that on this report that you can download from the United Nations Environmental Programme. It's about metrics. Metrics because we need to go and to integrate the sustainability metrics into the triangle of finance, return on investment, safety, security, risk, and liquidity is the notion of how fast you can sell a property. So this is what we call move from the boiler room to the boardroom. I'm sitting in a lot of boardroom, and I can tell you that we never discuss what is the quality of the boiler room. So my dream is to finally we will discuss about the best quality of boiler room or chilling machine or handling units, because it makes an impact on the value. And it really does. We also changed the evaluation process. I will not go through that very detailed, but it has an important implication that no valuers have to take care about the sustainability and the performance of systems. And this is really the connection between the building information model and the investment. We need to work on data. So I need to have there data on building and performance. I need to translate it into which kind of risk it means. And then as an output, we can have the quality of information that I can use in my evaluation process. And then I need from you a performance guarantee. That it really works, that the indoor quality is really there. So I really do think that in the next year we'll see more and more providers that will not sell only components or machines, but will sell indoor quality as a whole. So the first in the market that will sell to an investor, not anymore the air handling units, the chillers, the ducts, and so on, but will sell, Mr. Investor, I guarantee you that all the year long you will have between 21 and 26 degrees end of the day. And for this, you have to pay this lump sum every year. I can tell you as an investor, and we are a lot of investors I know, we will sign immediately. No more discussion about techniques, who is there. Very easy stuff, and it means something for the value of a building. So in resume, you can have a quality process, and the building information management is there. It's the fact that you can finally work into a quality process in building. You can work on all the process with your digital twin, and to make simulations on the twin at marginal cost. Very important, it's very important to take a look at the flow of data to make it that everyone can use it as a marginal cost. If I need to work a lot on your data to use it by myself, it doesn't make sense. So two main ideas there. It must work in a flow, and everyone has to use it at a marginal cost. And if you want more, this is some information about Riva. So where we work about that, as I said, we are very happy to work with you, or some of you who are interested to go further in this direction. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Feng, for a wonderful presentation. I can hear myself twice. Good. Do we have questions? Because Feng has to leave us soon, going home to his beautiful children. So if anyone has a question, you can ask in your language, and then we will get the translation. Shall I come up with a question?
I'm very afraid. I don't know if I was so clear or if everybody is still sleeping.
I think you were clear. There is a big business opportunity. We will give you the microphone and hold on for a minute because we have to...
Добрый день. Скажите, пожалуйста, а какая...
So, percentage-wise, good morning. So, what is the economic efficiency of modeling, percentage-wise?
Of the question?
So it was most interesting to listen to the story of BIM modeling, but what is the economic efficiency of the projects? How much time does the investor save and the developer save if we apply these principles?
Well, thank you for the question. Yes, it's all about money and cost. For the moment, we are in a phase that it will cost more money to everyone to step into the process. So I want to be very clear. You will not save money for the first project where you will use this building information modeling. You will spend more money, more time to change your process. So the first you will do, you will really spend more money. But what I can tell you in my company or some other companies where we do it since 2 years, the efficiency gain is about 20% on the cost of design. Because nobody is looking today how much time we spent to get the right information at the right time. For example, I can give you a very clear example on retrofit. I have a company where I worked with, where they worked on retrofit, and they didn't look at how much time they spent to get information about the measurement of buildings to retrofit it. When they started to look at it, they shift to the usual way of trying to get new plans, sending someone to measure and so on. They shift to the digital twins model, and in 1 year, they save enough money to pay all the investments they have made in the new digital process. So it's a return on investment that is less than 1 year. So again, you have a curve, as usual. You will pay more the first project, and then you will save money up. I think this is where we agree with the UK and others, up to 20% on the efficiency of a design. And I think it's just the beginning, because one of the most important gain is also the better quality on site, where you can deliver the building faster with a better quality thanks to the right information on the right time. And the third gain is when you give the digital twin to facility managers, then they can maintain the building also with a better quality.
I have a question. First of all, thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting. And I would like to analyze this presentation more? Could we see your presentation, for example, on your in internet on site?
Yes, it will be on the Swegon Air Academy
Yes,
in the next days.
like maybe a couple of more weeks, but it will
weeks.
be online, yes, and you will get the PDF as well. And if you go to www.swegonacademy.com or ask any of my colleagues from BIM, and they will send you the links. There was a question over here.
Фрэнк, здравствуйте, Александр.
The BIM system, does it require accreditation, affiliation with any of the power structures? Like if there is an emergency situation, then of course the law and order enforcement authorities are involved. So how do we go about that? Спасибо. Это очень важная тема. Цифровая модель может использоваться для обеспечения безопасности разного уровня. Я знаю, что в Великобритании, например, они тестируют информацию на противопожарную безопасность и работают вместе с пожарными структурами.
Translation, please switch to channel number 1. It was not on number 2.
No, sorry. So yes, it can be very useful for fire safety people. But you know, the fire safety people want to know if they can trust. If I send them a digital twins with circulation and plans, they want to be sure that in case of fire, this is the up-to-date information. So the questions that we are solving with them is the quality of information. So I think here it's the main point of sharing the information with fire safety and so on, is to really have a capacity that someone is responsible about all the information is up to date.
Еще один вопрос.
And another question. I wonder if you know how the norms and rules and standards in the Russian Federation work. And I wonder if we could become a part of your system with time. Can you imagine that happening with time?
So I don't know in details the Russian approach about that. What I'm sure is that Russian representatives are usually in international standards organization. So I think that in March there will be representative of Russian association to talk about standardization on modeling buildings. But I'm sorry, I don't know in details the Russian approach about this topic.
How much cost this program, this instrument? For example, if I want to use this program in my company. Thank you.
Well, it depends what you want to achieve. If you want to design faster, or if you have to work with investors. So the main question is, what do you want to achieve inside your company? Be faster, more efficient, or have a capacity to impact the investor decision? Because according to the different goal you will have, you will not use the same set of softwares and not the same training for your people inside. But the first step is training your people about using these new building information model softwares and what to do with the components and the way we can work with components.
Any more questions? Or we go on? Then we go on. Next presentation? Yes, more about buildings. Okay, thank you.
No, sir.
Oh, you have.
Могли бы назвать основных производителей программного обеспечения?
Who is the software producer, the software that you use?
About softwares. And I said again, it's not about softwares. It's all about what you want to achieve, because otherwise, as I said, you have some software sellers that will sell you something that maybe you don't need. So it's all about your process, where you are, if you are a designer, an industry company, and what you want to achieve. The point is not the software by itself, is how you put together some different softwares. So the development that we see more and more is about platform where you can input and output information from different softwares. For example, I work with Dassault System, which is a French platform that you may know in industry. It works a lot in plane manufacturers and automotive. And this platform is very useful to put a lot of information from different softwares, because I need to compile a lot of information from different softwares. So I think this question is not about which software you should use, but do you need one software or do you need a platform of exchange? And then it's different.
Okay, time to go on.
Thank you again.
One more.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Oh.
One more question
Sorry, Peter.
from you. Yes.
Добрый день, приятного.
Thank you very much. So here is my question. The system brings together different contradictory trends, engineers, designers, investors, who have very different goals. So my question is, I wonder if your system of standardization considers the priorities and the golden middle that might be achieved.
First of all, I think that we don't have different goals as investors, designers, and architects. We all want to design and have the best building at the lowest cost. Yes, this is the main goal.
Okay, if I will speak Russian.
As an engineer, I want, as an example, I want to have a comfortable climate, but the designer might say, your equipment takes too much space, I want things to be beautiful. When the investor sees that it's too expensive, I want it cheaper, so that there's a conflict then. So each of us wants to do what he does in the best possible way, but we go different directions.
We all want to achieve the best building that we can have for the lowest amount of money. And usually the kind of situation you describe is that you discuss as an engineer with the architect, and then a decision is made, and then we can discuss with the investor, and then we come back to the engineers and so on. The capacity of the model is that you can work all together, and you can decide all together what is the best compromise for the goal of the investor. And it makes the capacity to discuss based on more information, more detailed, and all together. But it really changed the way of work, really changed the way of work. And I know that some architects in France, when I did a French tour, some of architects were very afraid about losing the capacity to decide by alone. And some of us were very happy to have a capacity to discuss more with engineers and investors to do the best for the building. So then it will depend on what are the goals of a team, not the goal of each of one. But it's a very powerful tool when you use it as a collaborative process. Merci. Sorry, Marcus.
Добрый день. Вопрос достаточно...
No, quite a short question. What is the optimal time needed for the incorporation of the BIM method into our system? How much time?
It's very fast. It depends really on the training of the people working with different softwares and platforms. But in my company, we changed from the business as usual to the building information model, all the team in less than 6 months.
How big is your company?
300 people.
No more questions?
I think I have to leave the place to Marcus and Marta. Thank you very much again. Thank you.
You.